In the last video, we created the logic for a new endpoint, getItemsID, where the ID segment is dynamic. Let's now smoke test this with Postman. So to begin, we're going to create a new request here. And the URL for this is going to require a valid Mongo ID. So what we can actually do is go to our getItems request, and you'll see here in the response body that we have an item, and we can just go ahead and copy that right there like that. Now with this valid ID copied, what I can do is go to my new request, and I can set the URL to be URL/items, and then I can paste in that ID like that. So if I click send on that, you can see that it's worked. We got back that item. So that means our endpoint is likely working, so that's good. So what we'll do is we're going to go ahead and save this to our collection, and the request name for this one will be get items :ID like that. And I'll save that to my collection. The difficult thing about testing routes with dynamic segments like this one is that each time you clear the database, the test URL you've created in Postman won't work anymore, because if we clear the database now, this ID here is going to become invalid. So the way that we can overcome that with Postman is by using test scripts. So these allow us to write a script that will extract the ID from an item once we create it using this post items one over here. So then we can then use that ID as an environment variable, and we can then put that into our URL up here like that. So let's now go over to the post items request, and then we're going to click on the tests tab over here, and we're going to add in some code, which fortunately we can do with JavaScript. So let's create this variable called body, and we're going to assign to it JSON.pass, and we'll pass in response body like that. So this is obviously going to pass the response body, and response body is a global value provided by Postman that will represent what was returned by this request. Next, what we need to do is we need to go postman.set environment variable like that. And the first argument is the name of the environment variable, which will make item ID. And the second will be body, which is our variable above. And we're going to go item._ID like that. All right, so let's go ahead and save that. And now if we click send, you'll see in the response body that an item was created. And if you look at this little I thing above here, it shows you the current environment variables. And we can see here the variables URL, which is the one that we manually created before, and now we have this item ID one. Now it doesn't have an initial value, but it does have a current value, and it's the Mongo ID that we wanted to get there. So that's really cool. So now what we can do is go back over to getItemsID, and we can replace this right here with the environment variable item ID, and I'm going to click send, and there you go, that works. So this is really handy because after you clear the database, all you need to do is run post items, and that means this request will work again. With the smoke test now done, let's now write a unit test for this new endpoint. So to do this, what we're going to do is we're going to manually set the ID of the items that we seed in the database. So that's going to allow us to provide our own ID in a Mongo document when we save it, and that means we can then use that ID in the test. So what we're going to do is we're going to once again, grab the object ID method from the MongoDB package. And then we're going to modify our items here by adding an underscore ID property and then just going new object ID like that. Hang on, I made a mistake up here. That's got to be a const. All right. And I'll do exactly the same thing for the second item. And there we go. All right, so with that done, we're ready to create our new test for get items. So I'm going to go down to the bottom of the file. I'm going to create a describe block. And the description will be get items :ID. And then we'll pass that function in. Now for the first test case, we'll call it and we'll go, we'll call this one should return item doc, like that. Now of course this is going to be an async method. Oops, async. Like that. And we'll begin the test by creating a constant res for result, and we're going to await the resolution of request app like that. Now this is a get method, so we'll chain on a get, and for the URL we're going to need to pass in the ID from one of our seeded items as a dynamic segment. So what I'm going to do is make the URL a template string, and we'll start it off with /items/ like that. Then we can insert a variable, and for this variable, remember that we've got our seed items available since we've imported that at the top, and we're going to grab the first one of those, and we're going to use the property underscore ID like that. So that means we're requesting the first seeded item by the ID. Now we're going to need to chain on another method to the end of this. This one's called toHexString, because by default Mongo IDs are not stored as strings but as special objects used by Mongo. Alright, so let's make our first assertion. So we're going to expect that we get a 200 status back, and after this we're going to do basically the same thing that we've done in our other tests, and we're going to expect that the body of the object in the response, we go item.title, we're going to expect that to be the same as the first seed item title. That should be seed items like that. Okay, with that done, that's pretty much all we're going to need to do for our test. Let me just fix that typo there. And I've just noticed I made another typo there. It should be toHexString, not toHext. And with that fixed, we can go up here and run our test suite again. And there we go, 3 passing tests.